Hi, I'm Greg LeBlanc, and I'm here today at the Haas School with my colleague Don Moore, who's a professor in the Management of Organizations group here at the Haas School. Welcome, Don.
Thanks. Good to be here.
So, Don, with the popularity of the movie and the book Moneyball, everybody's come to appreciate the importance of analytics and data-driven decision-making in HR, in our people decisions. And yet, there seems to be a little bit of resistance, on the sort of cultural resistance, so that on the sales side, when we're dealing with customers, I think everybody's more or less accepted the importance of analytics. But on the HR side, there still seems to be some reluctance to adopt these very rigorous analytical methods. What could possibly account for that, in your view?
It is a vexing problem that has frustrated people in my field for a very long time. One of the clearest conclusions to emerge from decades of research on personnel selection tools is the shortcomings of the face-to-face unstructured job interview. And our field has utterly failed to promulgate this message in a way that has changed practices in most corporations. And it is exactly the cultural resistance that you're talking about that gets in the way. I think part of it is people's enduring faith that they're good judges of character, even though they, in most cases, lack the evidence to really be able to make an objective assessment of that belief. And then there are the difficult to quantify aspects of personnel selection decisions, which are undeniably important and have a role in the decision-making process. But as you know, it's not that hard to quantify these factors in some way or other, even if it's just having the subjective assessment, the interviewer make a numerical rating of the interviewee's response.
So you mean something like cultural fit? You know, people always talk about how that's important for the smooth functioning of the organization. But we don't really know how to quantify it, and we don't really know how to incorporate it into the hiring process in a systematic way. How would you, if you believe that cultural fit matters, how do you kind of operationalize that into an analytic hiring process?
It is a great question. Just about every organization believes that cultural fit is important, and that's why they want to keep interviewing candidates, even though they may acknowledge the existence of this evidence suggesting that interviews are not all that great at predicting future job performance. But they want to interview for culture fit. And most companies, they feel that it's important without having any actual meaningful data to help them back that up, or without being able to quantify what it means to be a fit in the organization. And so unfortunately, too often it boils down to, do they look like us? Are they white and male, and did they go to the same schools, and do they play the same sports as we do? Most companies would deny that that's what it is, but if it's not that, what is it? So figure out what it is, and then figure out how to assess it in a way that is informative and hard to fake. And if you can't do that, then you might question your ability to actually select on that.
Right now, at sort of the lower skilled level positions, I think it's probably pretty easy to design experiments and A/B tests and measure productivity. But as you go up further and further into the hierarchy, it becomes increasingly difficult to use these analytical techniques. If you were advising someone at the senior level of the organizations trying to recruit a team, how would you advise them to begin to incorporate analytics?
Oh, wow. Well, so the data are really clear on what sort of predictive variables you ought to be paying attention to in selection decisions. The simple one that comes out again and again as robust and predictive and reliable and real in the data is intelligence. Whether the person who's working for you is building spaceships or mopping floors, on average, they'll do better when they're higher intelligence. That's a simple one. If you can get data on prior job performance, that's great. The honest evaluations of prior supervisors and colleagues, that's informative. Interviews actually are also predictive, but to be useful, they have to be structured, as in the questions have to tap work-relevant abilities, and then you have to use the same structure for every candidate that you interview so that you're putting each one in the same situation and can compare across interviews to evaluate the differences, the strengths and the weaknesses of the different candidates.
Well, I think we're going to see this analytical approach creep ever higher in the organization. Thank you, Don.
So.
All right.